For the open board meeting of Tuesday, January 7th, 2020 to order. I Squale CM Nasietya, I Nasqualawan Koana Simanala. We respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, where we live, learn, and work and play. Moving to adoption of agenda, and before we go there, I forgot to give regrets from Trustee Thorne, who's ill, and the agenda has some changes. If you look on page 2, in the 7.2 board action area, the motion the suggested motion after 7.2.2, could you make it 7.2.3 new funding model? And then the next suggested motion, 7.2.3 UBCM. Then under number 8, if you'd have 8.1A, delete personnel and add strategic plan, and add 8.1B, which is strategic plan communication plan, and eliminate 8.2.3 and eliminate 8.3 for board action, but change it to 8.3 superintendent's update, and move the strategic plan motion over to the strategic plan. Thank you. Wow. And a motion to adopt the agenda.
That's amended.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Hutchins, seconded by Trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to minutes. Minutes of December 3rd, 2019, open board meeting. Motion to adopt, please. Moved by Trustee Cross, seconded by Trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to recognition and delegations, and I see the people that we are going to recognize have yet to attend. So I will ask for your indulgence to interrupt the meeting down the line when they do come. Does that meet with approval? Okay, moving to report of closed meeting. Mr. Sanquist.
Yes, the board met in closed session prior to this open meeting. Personnel items were discussed. The business of the meeting was not concluded. We moved back into a closed session immediately following the open.
Thank you. Moving to the action list on pages 13 and 14. There are comments from staff or questions from trustees. Madam Superintendent.
Underneath March 5th on the legacy wall. We are certainly moving forward around it here in the board office. We're looking at finalizing the list of trustees, their names, beginning at the amalgamation of SD 79. So we're doing some research there so that we can honor all the trustees from that period of time. And you can see in the corner of the board office, we're starting that legacy wall.
Thank you. The only comment I have is under December the 4th childcare spaces, and I noticed in the recording there that it was to be completed by January 31st, 2019, and I'll just leave that with you and move back to the agenda. Looking at item 7, chair of the board, first 7.1, to board information. You all know, but we'd like to celebrate again. Carleton Secondary School has received the funding for replacement, and we have until September 2023 in order to complete that. So everyone should know that our staff and the board will be working very hard over the next few months. 7.1.2, Carleton Tribe's inauguration, just to let you know that I did attend on our behalf. It was a very formal and impressive ceremony, and I would hope that this board looks at the kind of ingredients that inauguration contained to perhaps update and upscale our inauguration next time. Holiday gatherings, just to let you know that either I or Trustee DeGroot attended transportation, maintenance, custodians, and the board office holiday greetings. And so I think that's something that should be continued as a board. It's really important for us to thank all of our employees for the hard work that they do. And we know that our principals and vice principals and senior staff are doing that for schools. We appreciate all that our staff are doing. And framework for enhancing student learning workshop, just to let you know, I did attend with our superintendent the last session on that development. We, as you know, are a pilot district, 9 of us, and so we were brought up to date with the policy development on the framework, as well as we saw a couple of the school districts present their strategic plan. The one from the Interior, the superintendent, Allison Camlins, and Nanaimo, and they have their strategic plan not only developed, but the implementation plan developed. And so they're good resources for us. And I know the superintendent will be attending ongoing sessions with that group from the ministry that's leading the workshops. And I think it's really valuable for us as a district to be able to be there at the table and to contribute to the development. And for board action, I bring you some suggestions of motions. The first comes from our vaping committee. We have 3 trustees that sit on that committee, Trustee Crops, Trustee Kemmler, and myself. And so this was a suggestion that was written as part of the last minutes. There's one little piece that wasn't included there, and it's to write a letter to our Cowichan on behalf of the Board of Education to request that our Cowichan, in partnership with Island Health, develop a community awareness campaign on vaping. And I think Trustee Kemmler moved by Trustee Kemmler, seconded by Trustee Crop. Any conversation?
Just a friendly amendment, can we put the title Our Cowichan Health Network?
That would be a friendly amendment, I think, right? Okay. Anything further on the motion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to suggestion 2, BC School Trustees Association. I think that we are all aware of the kind of moves that the school district has made through our operations and senior staff district level around things like fencing, addressing noon hour supervisors, security guards that have been added to, needle pickouts, etc. So it hasn't been a lack of funding. We've, I assume, have been using our operations facilities funding for that, which detracts from our schools. So the suggestion is that we write a motion that is presented to our AGM, suggesting that the ministry come up with separate funding. We hear that all districts in the province are facing this dilemma, so suggestion is a motion. Is there someone going to proceed with that? Moved by Trustee DeGroot, seconded by Trustee Hutchins. Conversation, Trustee Hutchins.
Just a question on the wording. I don't know why it says a program to support. Wasn't it administrative to fund the cost? Because I don't know if we want them to create a program, we just want them to fund the cost.
And you're correct.
So can we delete, a friendly amendment, delete a program to support, just fund the cost paid by school districts associated? And I
Okay.
think it's,
Trustee DeGroot, are you okay with
That's fine,
that?
yep.
Okay,
also I think they should be funding it fully, not just support it.
right.
That's fine.
And fully fund,
I don't just say fund the cost.
fund the costs. Okay, anything further on the motion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item 7.2.3, regarding our new funding model. We have heard from our district staff. We've taken a look at that new funding model ourselves. We've heard from other districts. If the new funding model moves to headcount funding only, at this point, the implication is that the careers and dual credit courses would have no funding. So this is something that we should probably try to have the ministry take a look at, so that they're not only funding in a headcount, if that's what they want to do, but they add additional funding for those other courses. Perhaps, Mr. Sandquist, you could explain this a little better for me?
Sure. So one of the considerations in the new funding model is to move from what we call course funding to headcount funding. So a grade 10 to 12 right now can have more than a full-time FTE or less than a full-time FTE. In our district, the ratio of FTE to headcount is significantly more. So there's more opportunities for our grades 10s to 12 than some other school districts. And in that FTE are accounts for distributed learning that may be over and above the regular 10 to 12, and for dual credit, which may be over and above the 10 to 12. So the idea of moving to a headcount model where you're funded based on headcount at 1.0 FTE, when we know that our grade 10s are 1.3 FTE, is pretty significant. So the idea of this motion is to look at funding those career and dual credit opportunities outside of the headcount, so that the district wouldn't lose the additional revenue that they're currently receiving for those programs.
Okay, is there someone willing to move for the motion? Trustee DeGroot, seconded by Trustee Croft. Trustee DeGroot?
I know that we're not the only district that's worried about this, because that was one of the things that was talked about at provincial council, is that people are really concerned, absolutely really concerned. So this is really an important motion.
Thank you. Trustee Hutchins?
Through you to Mr. Sandquist, does this motion imply that we're supporting moving to a headcount model? Because if, rather than just saying we don't object to the headcount model, we're saying, okay, if we're gonna go that way, we wanna make sure this is covered, so.
It's the model is strongly, the information we're receiving on the model is strongly suggesting that it's moving towards a headcount model. I think that, of course, we haven't seen the final, but everything kind of coming out of the ministry right now is towards headcount. So I guess we are making the assumption that that's where they're moving, because they've been talking about it in such detail. But that's in fact what you're right. That's two separate things. We're hedging that they're moving that way, and this motion is to ensure that those other programs are considered separately.
Notice that this motion will go to provincial council as well, because it would be too late for the AGM. Any further comments on the motion? All those in favor? Motion carried. Moving to 7.2.3 UBCM, and this is the motion, or a suggestion around a motion to have this motion go to AGM, so that it becomes a provincial request, not just a request from our board or Vista, but rather brings it into the provincial picture. Trustee Hutchins.
So move the recommendation.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Hutchins, seconded by Trustee Croft. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item 8, Superintendent of Schools, A.1A. Or before you do that, Trustee Croft.
I think I've had a misunderstanding here because I had a little bit of something to share about the vaping one, and I thought I was going to get a chance to do that, or would you like me to save it?
We dealt with that under 7.2.1, and so we'll just continue that conversation.
So I can go ahead?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, everybody. So just around the vaping conversation, I just wanted to advise my trustee colleagues that the Ministry of Health has asked for input as they develop the regulatory framework around vaping. That regulatory framework, as you may know, is due out in April, and we have until January 24th to submit a letter or a commentary or whatever. So I've got some stuff written down here. So I would like to also advise the board that one of the things missing from the conversation, the best of my research ability, is that so far we don't have any practices, policy, or legislation that manages the availability of vaping products online. So all of the legislation talks about signage and accessibility and checking ID and that kind of thing. As soon as you move the availability of these products online, all those processes become moot. We also know from our own conversation with students that students simply buy a prepaid Visa and then they go online and buy their vaping stuff. And then they go to the mailbox and pick it up. So the whole process is invisible and as far as I can tell, unregulated. So I would like to put forth a motion and also gather your comments that we submit a letter in response to the Health Protection Branch request for approvals that would say that yes, we're terribly concerned about vaping and would look forward to changes, and that those changes should also consider the availability of vaping products online.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Croft, seconded. Trustee Kemler. Any conversation?
I'm confident there's
Trustee
a motion inside that.
Okay.
So yes, that's.
Okay, any further debate? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And moving back to Superintendent, 8.1A, Strategic Plan.
Okay, thank you everyone, and I'm going to count on our communications manager to bring up our strategic plan on our screen. What I want to let the board know that we've gone through our phases of 1, 2, and 3 that we started last year with exploring our documents and our future, looking at our data. We engaged with our public, we engaged with our community, our schools, our staff, and our students. And so now, here would be, with input from our community, our final document related to our strategic plan, which is our visionary strategic plan. So I'd like to go through this at a pace that if you have any questions, if you want to stop me at any time, please do so. But here would be the beginning of our visionary document, our strategic plan, and our story is beyond education, and that is our vision. The strategic plan is from 2020 to 2024. And as we go through this, I also want to recognize that many of the photographs that were taken would be from our community. They would be authentic photographs by our students in our community. The second page of the strategic plan acknowledges our territory, but also embraces our sacred children. We have certainly acknowledged all of our First Nations community, but we've also dedicated all of this work to all of our sacred children in the Cowichan Valley. And we've also included that we dedicate the work to our First Nations, our Inuit, and our Métis, and all of our children. And so that is how we are acknowledging our communities across this district. And here we have the Board of Education and the message from the board, acknowledging the work that's been done and where we're headed in the future. with some really lovely photographs of all of the photographers.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this page 4 is around basically acknowledging our school district, providing a context to the district, talking about that we're over 8,000 students and how the plan was developed, exemplifying, I think, around how we've explored, how we've gathered input across the school district, and that also around on behalf of our employees and our 23 unique school communities that we invite you, our community, to participate and engage in this process in the future around our strategic plan. And here's where we really start around our focus areas, that our story, and it's really our story, that it's beyond education, that we're preparing our learners for a world that they will create. And here is our mission, that we want our students to be agile and prepared to transition to a future of their choosing, and that our learners, that they will be compassionate, they will collaborate, contribute, think critically, create and innovate, and are literate across domains, and that's our mission. Here's what we value. We value equity, we value relationships, our environment, that we look forward to harmony, and that we are focused on how we value inclusiveness. Here's what we believe, and we have a list of what we believe: that all students can learn, that we support the whole child, that we hold high and achievable expectations for all, that the learning experiences should be engaging and purposeful and reflective of voice and choice, that there's an importance of the Indigenous ways of knowing, and that we all play a role in supporting student learning, and that we use strength-based approaches, and that our strength is found in diversity. And here is our common purpose, and it's around the educated citizen, and so we define the educated citizen here in the strategic plan. And after all the input, board's priorities, input from our community, our students and our staff, it came down to these 4 areas that we want to focus on: learning, Indigenous ways of knowing, a culture of care, and that we want to have a future-focused system. And then, of course, around learning, and this is where we get into some specifics, and if I could ask Mike to move us to the learning part of this. This is where we get to, in the white area, our focus on some of our areas that we need to really look at, and I consider it some of our objectives. And that would be looking at enhancing early learning opportunities and partnerships. It would be focusing on foundational learning and literacy and numeracy. And that we'd be looking at authentic, real-world learning opportunities for our children. And that we would look at well-designed learning environments that are profoundly personalized, learner-centered, inclusive, and social. And I just want to highlight that last component would be building on what we've been doing for the last 2, 3, 4 years here in this district. So the next part would be around Indigenous ways of knowing. And the areas or those objectives in the white print is looking at critically examining our own biases, attitudes, beliefs, values, and practices to facilitate truth and reconciliation, to address the inequities outcomes for Indigenous learners, to create safe and flexible and culturally responsive learning environments, and to deepen our understanding of environmental stewardship, place-based historical knowledge, language, and culture. So those would be the objectives around that priority. And then with regard to culture of care, we certainly want to acquire a deep understanding of our learners by developing healthy relationships with them. We want to look at creating healthy work and school environments that promote wellness. We want to enhance mental health opportunities and partnerships that support well-being. And then lastly, we want to continue to create and promote safe and inclusive learning environments for our diverse community. And then lastly, this priority around being future focused around our system. We certainly want to work together as a whole system, and we want to create that nimble and dynamic environments that really embrace change and foster innovation. And the three basically objectives down below would be that ensure all operational plans and procedures are cohesive and aligned with the strategic plan, direction of the district. Look at that all decisions are evidence-based, child-focused, and culturally and environmentally responsive. And then lastly, continue to enhance the capacity of the system where all members of our organization are committed to our primary purpose of supporting our learners. And I think that is our strategic plan for 2020-2024. I have to stumble over that 2020. And so I'd like to really thank all of the community partners and board and our senior team for really working toward that endeavor. And I hope that everybody feels that their voices are reflected in that strategic plan.
It's been an amazing plan. It's taken a long time to develop, but it's certainly worth the wait. I thank everybody that's been part of it. It's quite amazing. So I'm not sure if we need to adopt it as our plan or whether it is just a given.
There's a motion on 8.3.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Is there a mover? Moved by trustee Hutchins, seconded by trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving back to 8.1B, yes, communication plan.
All right, and so what I'd like to do is I would like to ask our communications manager, Mike Russell, to share the plan around communication internally and externally with the board, and then of course afterwards he'll be working on his communications plan and update as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Could you come forward, please, and just at the end of the table, and everybody can see you really well. And that works for us. I don't know about you, but thank you.
All right, no, you're welcome. So for the communication plan, I've broken it down into external and internal audiences, just so we have a bit of a flavor of how this will go. And I've written out a bit of a timeline on how we think this would best roll out. So starting yesterday, or today because I was busy yesterday, I visited the print shop, got some paper samples, got us ready to go for our printing. Hopefully get approval at the open board meeting, right there. And then we're going to take the documents and we're going to go with them printed in two different formats. So one will be a 5x7 format. That'll be easy for you to take around to your community meetings, throw a bunch in briefcases or purses, and away you go. And the other ones will be at 8.5x11, so the big full-size documents as well. So we're looking at getting those printed right away. Starting tomorrow, I'll be starting with our tech department to build a website where we will host this as well. So it'll live online as a document that we can refer to anytime, not just if we have the paper copies in our hands. From there, we are going to actually film a bit of a video. So it'll be about a 30-second video, and it'll be an introduction of the strat plan to the community. And so we'll have Candace as the board chair introducing the video, and then Superintendent Robin Gray talking about the process and how we kind of got here. Along with that was much of the information we heard reflected back from our meetings with the board and with our partners is we're going to have that gallery walk set up for that to be on video as well. So people will be able to see in depth all the responses that we received and that we got back and how those responses were reflected in the ultimate plan. So we're going to shoot that video and then sort of in between that 10th to 20th there do the work to kind of prepare this with our social media stuff, getting it printed, finalizing the video. January 20th, 10 a.m. we're going to have a media event here at the boardroom. Again, very much laid out like the video, where the board chair will give introductory remarks and introduce the strategic plan to the community. Superintendent will talk about the process. And again, we're going to have that same gallery walk set up here for anybody to go through. So the media will be able to see all the work that went into it as well. So it'll all be here for them to see. And then away we go. Then we're off to the races. We'll be promoting it on social media pretty heavily and trying to get it out there. As for internal communications, we are going to have presented to our principals, vice principals at their meeting tomorrow, a gallery walk. It's a familiar term we're using now, right? With all the stuff put around for them to see. A presentation on the strategic plan, showing them how the plan changed from what we originally presented to what's going forward now, reflecting the voice of all the work that they've done in their school communities with their parents, their staff, and their students as well. So that'll be the communications plan.
That sounds very comprehensive. Thank you. Questions or comments from trustees? Trustee Croft.
Do you have any outreach for the trustees to support in particular, or?
Not in particular, but yes, that would definitely be a part of this, is that face-to-face connection. That's why I'm printing so many of those 5x7s, is so you can have those and go out to community and talk to them and have something in your hands. I figure it's a better representation than, a business card with a website on it, right? To have something concrete in your hands to hand out to them.
Thank you. Anything else from trustees? Okay, well, thank you very much for supporting us through this endeavor, and I'm sure that we will be well known out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to ask Communications Manager Mike Russell to continue around the communication update, which is, I believe, 8.2.1.
I'll bring that right up here. So, thanks again for having me back. I've been asked to do a little presentation on an update on our communications, our storytelling strategy. It's what I presented early in September, last June, about, early in September it was, about our storytelling strategy and how we were going to tell the stories of the district and get them known. So, to do a little bit of a recap, we came down to distilling how we would talk about our stories to these 5 points. That are guiding principles of our stories. They must be hopeful, they must be future-focused, learner-centered, unique and interesting, and be reflective of our communities and our roles within. So when we looked at that, that was the what stories we're going to tell, and this was the how we're going to tell our stories. So we're going to tell them through individual school stories, a mini documentary series, our in-house stories, so me with a camera out of the school, through an Indigenous education lens, so Hello Dolly, welcoming to work with me, and then through media outreach. And at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is to inspire and inform our populace here in the Cowichan Valley. So, the question then is it working? So for our school stories, which we've now done 3 of, we've done Chemainus Elementary, Francis Kelsey, and Coheman. We've had those out. They are about 3-minute stories that are going out, just short vignettes about sort of the heart of the school. So a story of the school told with an example of something that's happening there, but really digging into the heart of the school and talking about the processes that allow that school to be successful. So like I said, we've done 3 of those. So far we've had 17.7 thousand views on those. So they're pretty popular. It's been pretty fantastic for those to go through. Our mini documentary, Haha Smanem. This was a documentary that we shot all of last year. Basically, I started here October 1st, October 3rd, we started our first shoot for it. So we ran all year last year, and that was about all the wonderful Indigenous teachings and learnings that are happening throughout our district, from kindergarten right up to high school, and all the wonderful experiences that are linked to curriculum that are happening out on the land and in the classrooms. So it's been really good. We actually held on to it for a while and only debuted it recently at our November non-instructional day, because the focus of that day was Indigenous education, with Monique Gray-Smith being our keynote, and it was a wonderful segue right into her presentation. So for that documentary, we've had 13.2 thousand views on that alone. So again, very successful. That one was recently shared by the BCSTA in their their monthly newsletter, and they've actually done a lot of promotion for us on that video too. So big thanks to them. Our in-house stories. So again, this is me with a camera out telling stories at a school. The majority of what I did last year was these in-house stories. If you think 3 years ago, the only time the media came knocking, before you had anybody in this position, Katie before me or before me now, the only time the media came knocking was if they wanted to talk to you about something that probably wasn't so pleasant. This has really changed. So our in-house stories in our first year with Katie starting the Facebook page, and we had about 600 views per post. That has steadily increased, and this year, so far in the first 5 months, we've had 110,000 people exposed to our content on Facebook, just through those. That doesn't count the people exposed through the school stories or Ha Ha Smanem, Hello Dolly, or Prompting Word of the Week. That is complete and separate. And speaking of Hello Dolly, this has been probably one of my favorite things to have started this year, was Hello Dolly. It is, you know what, you just roll up in a blanket and listen to Dolly like your grandma, giving you great advice and talking you through stuff, right? It is just amazing. And it's been popular online, but what's been more heartening about it is that we're hearing a lot of it in community, where Dolly is getting recognized for being on video, being recognized by her community for the teaching that she's giving. And so it's been pretty fantastic. We've had 3 of those go out, because they go out every other week, and they started in November. And they're already at 8,000 views on those. And then finally, we have Hulkaminum Word of the Week. So Claudia Sylvester, our Simon Fraser University master's level student, or graduate in Hulkaminum, is teaching Hulkaminum to the community through this Word of the Week program. And again, been incredibly successful, but again, very much out in the community and hearing a lot of it from being out on the street, people talking about this program. That one has been viewed 14.4 thousand times. So in total, we're at about 168,000 interactions with content, positive content coming from the district and going into the community. So it's been really successful so far. Thank you for that.
Oh,
Trustee Hutchins.
are you able to tell us, of the 168,000, how much is that from in the Cowichan Valley versus outside the Cowichan Valley?
I can dig down deeper into those. When I ran the analytics last year to develop the storytelling strategy, and I really did a deep dive into where people were coming from, it was definitely the majority were coming from here. Here in Victoria are actually our 2 biggest ones. And then it sort of gets less as you go further out. But yeah, there are people in Ontario looking at our stuff too.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from trustees? Trustee Cameron?
I just really appreciate it, because that is where our people are. It's where the students and their families are, is on Facebook and Twitter. So it's just great. You've done a great job of engaging. You hear it when you're out. Oh yeah, I saw it on Facebook. Oh, I was on Twitter the other day. So that's really good.
I was just gonna make a comment that I think that Mike would like to share the video, and I know it's quite lengthy, so I think it's a matter of whether the board would like to actually view that video at this point in time. How many minutes would it be,
I think
Mike?
it's 12 minutes, 12 and 17 seconds.
Okay, board, what would you like to do? Sure, okay, we're in.
And just so you know, it might be a little bit laggy because we're just going on AirPlay over here. So it's honestly, when it's on YouTube, it's not shaky. So.
Okay.
Our children are so precious to us. We want the best for them. We want to be supporting them in any way we can. So I guess it's that saying of how the elders refer to all of our children as our spectrum. They are that flower. They are our flowers. I need all of that nurturing and being attended to and looked after and cared for, and all of that needs to be embraced. And that's what they want for our children. My name is Tusila. For the English part, Ron George. Cowichan is my home. It's the home of my parents, the home of my grandparents, and fortunate to see my great-grandparents. So, yeah, my home. I was fortunate enough to obtain up in education, and so I applied for it and I got it, and I've been working ever since. This was in 1980. So I got to work with our children in the schools. Got to see the heart of education, the teachers, and the very core of our students. First Nations education and the school district. That was the start of it. And create a partnership. Let's have a partnership. With all due respect, I say their names. Really the pioneers. First Antoine, Noah George, Kay George, Lee Peter, Molly Peter. They were the first cultural teachers. And the whole priority for them was the sake of the children. To be the children. And so that really began the inclusion of First Nations into the education system. The chief and the superintendent, can come together and what's happening in the school and saying we need to do something about that. That's powerful within itself.
I am Rosanna Jackson. I'm the Indigenous Curriculum Coordinator for our school district in School District 79. Truth and Reconciliation is alive in the new curriculum. The new curriculum in BC was based and designed off Indigenous principles. The First Peoples principles of learning, you can feel them and see them in every part of the curriculum. And so it's changed the way in which teachers work with and interact with learning, and it's changed the way in which we see Indigenous learning. Truth and Reconciliation is everyone's work, and the new curriculum is so enriched and so embedded with Indigenous pedagogy and with the need to know Indigenous content that now teachers are coming to us and they're saying, how can we be more part of this work, and what do we need to do to make this work real, and how do we enter this conversation? So it's a huge thing. It's a big change to have people asking how they can do work, because it changes their motivation. Halkomena, where we take grade 9s, grade 8s across the water, it's still Inclusive territory. They learned how to pull cedar, the protocol behind it. They participated in pecan cooking. They went on plant walks. They did intertidal sessions. They did all these pieces, learned how to weave. They helped to write songs using drums. They were immersed in what was a village, and they were asked to start considering what would this look like? What would it look like here? What resources are available, etc. And then we brought that all back into the curriculum. What does this look like in social studies? What does this look like in English? And how can we help to further facilitate teachers using these events outside of this day? And so our community and our classroom teachers are working together to ask those big questions. How can we make sure that this is learning that carries on, and this is learning that is a jumpstart for our students?
I am Norma Gray. I am currently the superintendent of schools here at Cowichan Valley School District. We have started a beautiful journey toward truth and reconciliation. In Cowichan Valley School District, there has been a lot of work already accomplished in terms of creating understanding around language, around culture, around Indigenous teaching. We've already started that journey, and I believe that we can take that to some new places for our future. We move forward in terms of my vision. It would be that all of our schools create these innovative places that are inclusive, that allow all of our children to have great options. But fundamental to that, Indigenous local traditions are embedded in all that they do within that school day. And having teachings and learning opportunities that are reflective of our Indigenous local community.
Rod Allen. Technically, my title is Superintendent of Schools in Cowichan Valley. I would consider myself lead learner. Reconciliation is not an academic endeavor. It doesn't happen just in your brain, it happens in your heart. It happens in your entire being. But it's an opening, not I have come to a place. It's an opening to the possibilities. It's exactly the same around transformative learning. You learn with your heart. Yeah, you hold stuff in your head, but you learn with your heart. So how do you engage the heart of our students? How do we engage their whole selves, their passions? That kind of a process is not dissimilar from I think the reconciliation process of opening your heart, being open to new and different ideas, questioning your beliefs, questioning the things that you believe to be true, and being able to continually questioning, especially in terms of reconciliation, continually questioning the assumptions you make that you don't even know you made.
My name is Denise Augustine, and I am the Director of Indigenous Education and Women Engagement for Capuchin School District. The spirit of reconciliation is about making things right. For the first time that I'm aware of, educators at all levels in the organization are really listening to Indigenous people, and that is a first step in reconciliation. Ultimately, I would hope that we see each and every Indigenous learner show up at school as a whole person, proud of who they are and where they come from, and not feel like they have to tuck any of that away when they enter the classroom or enter a school. Then we know we're getting somewhere. Ultimately, I hope that we'll see all people benefit from the ancient wisdom that is carried in Indigenous languages and culture. Now more than ever, our planet needs that wisdom.
The other thing that's really neat is how much of it is coming from students. We had an Orange Shirt Day performance over at Shananis, where the kids were so moved by the story of the orange shirt and the reason we do Orange Shirt Day, that they were inspired in dance class to create dances that represented the struggles and the resilience of people who'd experienced residential school. How do we use these things that are there and go next step? So one of them is Science and Culture Clam Gardens. And at Clam Gardens, it's one of those events that you look forward to and circle on your calendar 100 times because it's all of these amazing knowledge keepers, universities, Parks Canada, and all these elders and all these Coast Salish people coming together to bring rich knowledge to kids. They go to the Clam Garden Wall and they get to see how Coast Salish people were using the clam gardens in order to have the resources that they need to eat, in order to make sure that the rock wall itself would be an area where other animals would be drawn to, that the shore would change its shape and there would be a larger area for clams to be in. It's about a culture that's very much alive. It's about richness, it's about deep science, it's about interconnectedness between people and the spaces that they live. And students are finding out that all of these places that we just saw as being cultural, and I say just in the way that they saw it as it was a just thing, now they're understanding what culture really can mean. That when you're deeply interacting with your culture, that culture also looks like environmental stewardship, and it looks like thinking a long time into the future about what will come next, and preparing people for the future, and seeing yourself as a person who's caring for their space and place, and about respecting those who came before you, and all the work they did, so that you could have a life you had. And so we're seeing this brought out in places like Clam Gardens. I am so excited about what the future means. I'm so excited about what it means for every student to have pride of person. What will our community look like?
The grass is far greener in the future. Our kids have it, our educators, they're pointing in the right direction. So be optimistic, be bold. Think about the equity that's coming into our system as a transformative opportunity as opposed to a conservatizing opportunity. We could look at equity as let's make everybody the same, which leads to the lowest common denominator, or let's give everyone, make sure everyone has amazing life chances and has an opportunity to live their dreams and beliefs and move forward. And that sounds a bit corny, but when you ignite those passions, people actually act on them. And all those perspectives that have been, we historically have shut out of the conversation, we actually embrace in the conversation. So be bold, be optimistic, take a chance sometimes, and trust our kids.
Gives a lot of hope when I see our young ones our students on what they're doing and all of the knowledge that they're bringing in. And I'm enjoying every bit of watching that and being a part of it. We want our young ones to carry through and be whoever they want to be in this world. There's nothing holding them back. That's a dream.
Thank you. Janet, you're
All right, yes, I know, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. Thank you, Mike. I think we are on the Cowichan Valley School District logo development process, and so I just want to let the board know that we have a bit of a timeline in place, and we'll be looking toward establishing an opportunity for the board to give, firstly to secure an artist, but for the artist to look at our strategic plan, to have some conversation with the board in terms of creating that vision and that logo. And so our timeline looks at like that we'd like to have this accomplished by May of this spring. And so further information will come forward later on as we move toward developing that new logo. So just an update there.
Thank you. Trustee Hutchins?
Perhaps the trustee that has been here a century.
Century?
She
Yes,
said a century.
the decade.
The
century.
decade, sorry.
Yes.
Is there a, what was the logo before that was adopted? Well, it wasn't.
Cowichan.
It's text.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that process is underway. Moving on to 8.2.3, we have an international student program trip planned for Ottawa and Toronto, dates March 12th to the 18th. So I want to inform the board that based on AP 261, that final approval have been granted by the district level staff with regard to that trip. We have 50 students with 5 supervisors going with them. And the students will be going to the University of Toronto and Carleton University, as well as touring the capital while they're there. So that will be happening in March. All right, moving on to menstrual products in schools. Presently, right now, we have a number of our dispensers being installed in all of our female gender-neutral washrooms, where all students in the grades 4 and up will be in attendance. Principals and vice principals have given us feedback related to how and which washrooms should these dispensers go in. And of course, we also got some feedback from our DSAC students, District Student Advisory Committee, where they gave us feedback on the products that needed to be in those dispensers, as well as how they should actually be provided to students at the school site. So it's well underway and they're being installed as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think I'm moving on to 8.3, superintendent's update. Okay. And so there's a number of things, and firstly I want to acknowledge that we had a number of people here who were working over the Christmas holiday, and so between the clerical, custodial, grounds and trades, preparing our schools and in the classrooms for students and teachers coming back in January. So not all of us were on a holiday, but there were some of us who were working hard to ensure that everyone was being paid, and so we certainly want to congratulate their efforts and commitment to the work that they do. We also want to thank the number of staff for the dedication and work that they did toward the Cowichan Valley School replacement, and that we now have that dedication and that perseverance that has definitely paid off. Okay. Next week we have our Gravity Car event. Some of you might have attended that. It will be happening on January the 16th. and it will be held at the Island Motorsports Circuit. In this challenge, students work as a team to design and build a gravity vehicle. Vehicles are judged by how fast they travel on the track. I think I'm one of those judges who will be there next week. And the team that performs the best at the districts will then be invited to compete at the Skills Canada Regionals at VIU in Nanaimo on February the 27th. So if anyone would like to go to that, it's next week. Next week on January the 16th and the 30th, we have Shelley Moore, who will be coming back to our school district, and she will be working with two schools, Cowichan Secondary and Discovery Elementary, with classroom teachers, learning assistant teachers, resource teachers, and working on our inclusive practices. And in the afternoon, she will be also working with our principals and our vice principals in terms of her work across this province, and certainly supporting and building our capacity overall. In addition to that, we will be hosting some afternoon sessions for parents on the 16th and the 30th, as well as our district parent group are invited as well. So we're looking forward to Shelley Moore's arrival next week and on the 30th of January. On January the 21st, we have our third Ignite and Bite, our third session that's scheduled at Quamashi School. Here is our new poster. I will pass it around if anyone would like to look at it. And again, it is focusing on the areas related to Indigenous understandings, mental health, and curriculum and instruction. So our learning coordinators have been very busy planning for those events, and it's also happening right before the end of first semester at our secondary schools. So please come if you have the ability to do so. Next, Deeper Learning Dozen update. As you know, we have some senior staff that attend the Deeper Learning Dozen learning sessions. The second one of the year will be occurring in Monterey, California on January the 22nd through the 24th. We have 4 members of staff going, Cheryl Kors, myself, Darcy Hoff, and Nicole Boucher, who will be attending on those dates in January. And then there'll be a final meeting this year that will be held on April the 28th through the 30th at Jefferson County, Colorado. And each one of the host sites happen to be school district staffs who are actually part of the Deeper Learning Dozen, and so we're being hosted by those particular educational communities when we go to those events. And then moving on, we have international education. They are embarking on a new student exchange opportunity for some of our students in our district, and it's a exchange opportunity under the auspice of International Ed. They will be targeting core French students wanting to improve their French language skills that may be directed as a career choice. So it's not specific to French immersion per se, but this opportunity will be open to grade 10 and 11 students across the district to participate in an exchange with Académie de Lyon, France. Doing my best to put my accent together appropriately. So we're looking at a total of 5 to 10 students from here to participate in that program. So students from Lyon will come to the Cowichan Valley for the month of October in 2020, and our students will travel to France for the month of March 2021. Students will stay with host families that are vetted through our international program, and there will be no fee to participate in the exchange, but students will be responsible for covering their cost of travel to and from France. So what a beautiful opportunity for some of our students to participate in that program to enhance their French language skills. And then lastly, I just want to share that the number of schools that we were able to visit here in December would have been Lake Cowichan School, where I had the great fortune of serving the turkey lunch at Lake Cowichan. And then also I was able to attend a PAC meeting at Paulson Elementary, and the opportunity to hear back from them around the strategic plan and the draft that we had in place at that time. I was also able to attend another turkey lunch at Alexander Elementary. It was a number of turkey lunches that week. And then again, I was also able to go to the Cowichan Secondary announcement of the replacement school. So that is my update. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any of those.
Any questions from trustees? Okay, thank you, Superintendent, for your report. Moving to Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. My items are all finance related this evening. So we're going to start with the grant announcement that came out based on the September 30th enrollment, and I'll just wait for it to come up here. So hard to see. This is our funding formula, and what it does is it translates our enrollment that we submit on September 30th into dollars. So where you see that most of it is white, that's because that is the known funding component of our grant right now, which is based in September. The two yellow areas are for February and May, and those are yet to happen. So the grant is 90-some-odd% confirmed, but the balance will come in through those February and May counts. So the next, if there's any questions on this document, it's typical funding formula that we've had in place for the last 15 or so years with some slight adjustments, but basically it's predominantly based on the number of students that we have, and there's certain components that are based on just where we live, like the unique geographic factors, and et cetera.
Any questions from trustees? Trustee DeGroot?
The red.
The red part is a negative. So what that's telling us is that we have a lower average teacher salary in this school district than the provincial average. And that's because we are one of the districts that has the largest classroom enhancement fund, which resulted in a huge recruitment 2 years ago to fill our staffing component. So a lot of our new TOCs became teachers 2 years ago. And what that means is that we received a little bit less funding on that supplement, which is to level the playing field for all school districts. So the reason they have this is to ensure that all school districts are funded for the variations that they may have in their teaching costs. So in other words, you would have no incentive to hire a newer teacher versus a more senior teacher if you could, in order to save funding. It's all levels itself out of the funding model. So that's what that red is.
Thank you.
And it amounts to about $71,000 on $1.4 million supplement. So how we translate that into the funding announcement comparison. So Karen has done the comparison here for us, which shows what we thought we were going to receive last February based on the enrollment that we submitted to the ministry then, and what we have now in the funding formula. And it really only changes in September, because that's the only change that we've had so far. We don't have the February or May counts. And you can see that it's up by 503,000, and that's good. But we also had a lot of expenses associated with that. That's a result of an increase in FTE of about 10 over what we had projected. But certainly we had a lot more services go in, and a lot of other costs come into the budget as well. So we'll have that for the board at the January BEC budget meeting, a full budget reconciliation for the amended budget. But right now we're just showing you that funding is up, but it's actually all really already gone out into other areas of the budget. So there's the comparisons there. So just on the regular student count, that 10 FTE resulted in about 64,000. The bulk of the funding coming in through level 2 and level 3 special needs, as well as Aboriginal education. And that 91,000 in Aboriginal education is targeted, so it must be spent in that area. Okay, so from that, we've taken the amended budget as we have it today, and we've done a funding projection, which will be the next, or a year-end projection, which will be the next document we can look at here. So this is based at November 30th, and what I want to show you here is really around sort of the salary component of this. what we're seeing is continued over projections on our casual replacement, which is for not just for illness but also for vacation coverage. And drilling down a little bit more into that, what we're experiencing is greater than normal individuals who are off for what we would call long-term illnesses that really are not predictable, they're surgeries and etc. And for example, we would normally have about 4.5 teachers annualized in a year on that budget, and right now we're running at about 10. So if you extrapolate that to the end of the year, 10 versus 4.5 is about 500,000. That trend continues, we'll be running over. It's being bounced off right now by some surpluses in some other accounts, but we do need to be watching it. And of course, that can change in a day. Or I know one day we had 3 individuals go off for surgeries on the same day. They could all come back on the same day, and then we're out of that budget. So it's just really a dynamic. You can't predict it. It's not. We budget based on what we think will happen based on past trends, and we're just out of trend right now. It's not the short-term usage of our sick leave. It's just really the long-term, as well as maternities. The top-up supplements for maternities are up quite a bit, which we would expect because 2 years ago we hired a whole bunch of younger teachers. So we'll need to be thinking about that as a future budget adjustment as we move forward. I think as a more permanent thing as our teachers are becoming younger, as you saw in the average teacher salary supplement. So another area as well that we are watching closely is our utilities. It's a bit of an anomaly right now. We think we've had a really warm startup, but right now we're spending a fair bit on hydro, more than what we would have expected, and that could just be a timing thing with the bills. We may be a month ahead. If BC Hydro was typically billed at the first of the month, they changed our billing date to the 30th of the month, then we may be a month out that. So we just need to do a little bit more investigating into there because it doesn't make a lot of sense to us. But when we run that projection at November 30th, it shows that we're at about $1,200 in the whole off budget, which is really, really close. It's basically balanced at that time, so not generating any additional surpluses at this time. We'll need to be, that's really important to note, because as we go into next year's budget, we are budgeted currently this year using a prior year's surplus to help us balance, and so we need to make that up unless something changes in the forecast. So this is where we were November 30th. Looking into December, that absenteeism trend is continuing, and it's a little worse than what you see there. But we haven't done the full December analysis to see if there's other areas that are making that up. Just a quick. So if there's any questions on that, I'm going to take those now.
Okay.
That's where we're at. The next place is to go over the budget development schedule for the spring of 2020. So the chair of the board and superintendent and I have sat down with calendars and looked at all the various dates when we think we should be meeting and set this proposed budget development schedule. It doesn't include board planning sessions, which will be held outside of these dates. This is really for the meetings that most of them are available for the public to attend. So we start quite aggressively in February, and as usual, that it is 2 meetings a week right through to almost the start of May, so we can get the staffing in place. So we will do the best we can to project in February not necessarily having a funding formula that we may not know about yet, unless that's still expected to be delivered on March the 15th if we do get the new funding formula. But we will do what we can with the information that we have up to that point and be ready to go. So hopefully you can all make most of those dates. Factors in the Easter break and the BCSTA AGM as well.
Does anyone see a date that it's not going to work for them?
There's a lot.
The chair of the BEBC committee that is highlighted here and there. Make that work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Those are all information items tonight.
Okay, thank you. So moving to committees and outside organizations. first is District Parent Advisory Committee, Trustee Kemmer, I think
I did make a motion to accept the minutes, please.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Kemmer, seconded by Trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. The highlights of the DSAC committee meeting, Trustee Dolan.
Make the motion to accept those minutes.
Moved by Trustee Dolan, seconded by Trustee Kemmer. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to upcoming meetings and events. So the schedule is on page 30. And I noticed that the daily calendar, or the monthly calendar there pointed out that the DSAC meeting is Trustee Hutchins and the DPAC meeting is Trustee Thorne. I'll let him know. The other is the BCSDA Regional Conference, which came out with an agenda of our meeting for ST 79 during our closed week/spring break. So I have talked to them and we can choose either February 13th in Victoria or February 27th in Campbell River. Because of personal commitment on the 13th of February, need to choose the Campbell River one. But they said we could split up if we were interested in doing it that way. So I'll ask Claire to send out a message to you around that and we'll see who's able to attend what. Okay, thank you. Anything else we need to include on the schedule? Okay, moving back to the agenda then. Correspondence. So we have email from Ann Anderson regarding a time change, and it is attached, and it's about moving to the time change that it looks like is coming. And she is pointing out in the email that that may be difficult in terms of the light of day for our students in the morning. Comments? Trustee Croft and then Trustee Group.
I haven't come down on either side of this, as if it's up to me, but I think there's an awful lot of conversation out there pointing out that dark mornings are particularly difficult for high school students, and we know that their circadian clock doesn't adjust to anything. It is what it is. So I think it might be something, I don't know if we can influence the decision, but I think it might be something we want to prepare for our students and our teachers. Sorry to say, but I just wonder about tasking our staff to take a look at it and to see if and how it might impact us, and I'd be interested in my fellow trustees' thoughts on that.
Okay, let's hear from Trustee DeGroot and then come back to you in terms of the motion. Sure, Trustee DeGroot.
Well, I think I sent everybody a letter that I received. And one of the things in that letter was that the province actually did a survey, and more people wanted us to stay on standard time than to go to daylight saving time, probably for those same reasons. Maybe, I think, yeah, staying on one time is great, but we have to be realistic here, and I think they forgot about us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they just, it's like, if most people said stay on standard, I don't understand. I think probably because Washington State said no, I'm gonna go to daylight saving, so let's stay with them. I don't know.
Thank you. Trustee Hutchins?
Trustee DeGroot, I understood that 91% of the people were supportive of
staying in one time. And not, more people wanted to stay in standard than to stay in daylight saving.
Thank you. Trustee Croft, are you?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to ask staff to look into this and just see how it will affect our students.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Croft. Is there a second for the motion? Oh, thank you. Seconded by trustee Groot. Any debate?
I
Trustee
have a
Dolan.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I hear every so often the science people looking at this question. But the politicians, of course, aren't listening to the people of science. So if we ask our staff to go start looking at this question, there's a lot of people who've already looked at it.
I'm not asking for the whole province, I'm just saying what would the impact be on our schools and our students?
It would be the same everywhere.
Okay.
You know, it's just, I think we would be asking our staff to do stuff that other people are looking at or have already looked at, and we're not really gonna have a whole lot of influence over it.
Can I just ask our staff, I'm not sure which staff, would you look at already formulated research as part of that?
Well, I think if I can just suggest that I think that there could be some look at the research that's already been developed, so that could be brought forward. But it could also be a look at maybe some of our secondary schools and hear back from some of the students and how that could impact them. So that would be more of a local kind of a sample versus it being around the other bit of the research.
Thank you. Sorry. Trustee Hutchins and then trustee Croft.
Yeah, I would be supportive of this motion if it was directing it to the Ministry of Education on behalf of the province, such as trustee Dolan had suggested. This shouldn't be each local area looking at this issue. It's a provincial initiative. If we direct it to the Minister of Education, he's sitting around that cabinet table when the discussion comes up. I think we have to put on them, and it's a provincial issue, it's not a local issue. And I think our staff are taxed enough with the work plan that has been outlined for them. So I would be speaking against the motion and be supportive of a second motion that would direct it to the Ministry of Education.
Okay. Or do you want to? Fine. Any further comments on this motion? Trustee Croft.
I'm not married to it. My intent is that because it's pretty controversial, there's so much information floating around. I mean, we could each get on our computers and inform ourselves, or the board could be informed on the issue as a board, and I guess that's where I was looking for input from staff. So whether it goes at a provincial level as an advocacy level, that's not where I'm going. I'm not looking for advocacy. I'm looking to inform the board. So I can withdraw the motion if people aren't going to vote for it anyway. I don't know. What do you want me to do, Madam Chair? I'd be glad to just smooth it all out to help us get somewhere.
Well, why don't we just go forward and see how it ends?
Okay.
Okay. Trustee Groot.
Okay, I looked up the information and the survey that went out from the provincial government asked 2 questions. One was change the clock twice a year or stay in permanent daily saving time. So 3% of the people said permanent daily. They didn't want change, so let's stay with daylight saving. Then the Associated Press and York Center for Public Affairs put out a survey. In BC, the majority of people wanted the government to pick a time and stick with it. They also gave the option of standard versus daylight, and standard time was chosen by 40%, 30% preferred daylight. And the others didn't care.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, could you read us the motion, please?
That the Board of Education, School District 79, asks staff to look into the effects that time change would have on students.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor? 3. Those against? 3.
Jolie said
All right, so it's Mr. interparliamentarian secretary treasurer.
Motion is defeated.
Oh,
Just a few.
all right, thank you. Do we have another motion that's coming forward? Trustee Hutchins.
Yeah, I think we need to find out more, so I'd like to move that we request the Ministry of Education provide us and our colleagues in other school districts information of the impact of is it a single time you're worried about or the daylight time?
I'm personally,
Yeah.
daylight time.
That's what they wanna do.
All right, moved by trustee Hutchins. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by trustee Croft. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, we also need to receive and file the correspondence. Moved by trustee Croft, seconded by trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. No new business, no question period. Oh, nobody else. Are there questions? Yes, Mr. McDonald. Do you have a question?
Oh, no. Well, I just wondered if they read the last thing that
On the rights of the child? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we all read it. Yes, thank you very much. Just reminded us.
I'm glad you
Yep.
read it, because it cost me about $60 to get them printed.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you very much. Any further questions from the audience? No? All right, well, Happy New Year and a motion to adjourn. Moved by trustee Dolan, seconded by trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll take